When I write a talk, I have two questions at the top of my outline. I have a really cool, geeked out outlining program that I use. The first question I have is, why is this important? And the second question is, what am I excited about you taking away from this talk? And those two questions are so helpful for me because it connects me with my own excitement. It connects me with my intention. And I kind of go through that exercise in every talk so I can feel I'm kind of aligned with it as best as I can. So why is this talk important? The power of the questions that you ask yourself can change your life. They certainly have for me. And what am I excited about you maybe taking away from this talk? Well, there are pragmatic ways that you can use inquiry or questions you can ask yourself that can help you make decisions. But there are also ways that you can use inquiry to really explore the truth of what and who you really are. There's quite a span that questions offer. I talked a little bit about meditation and intuition last week, and I'd like to dive a little more into the power of questions. So there are four main things I'd like to cover tonight if we have time. I may end up talking really, really fast to get through them. One is the power of your thoughts and the power of your questions. One is how questions can deepen intimacy with yourself and in life. The third is how you can use questions to reframe a problematic situation and offer up some creative solutions. And the third is how questions can reveal who and what you really are, spiritual inquiry. There's this amazing article I read a while ago, and it was about a meeting of Robert McNamara, who was sort of the chief architect of the Vietnam War, who met with some of the North Vietnamese generals, those who were still alive. This was many, many, many years later. They had this meeting. And to me it was stunning because McNamara was saying, we were here to fight communism and preserve democracy. And the North Vietnamese said, no, you weren't. You were here to invade our country and take over, and to take over the whole region. And it became this huge sort of intellectual fight. Here was McNamara all about fighting communism, and here were the North Vietnamese saying, no, you're invaders taking over our country. Those 2 points of view created an incredibly costly conflict. And the North Vietnamese said, well, if you were here to fight communism, why didn't you help China in 1949? Why didn't you help the Batista regime in Cuba? And they never got an answer to that. And it was so frustrating for McNamara. Apparently at one point he just sort of pounded the table. What I find stunning about that is the power of what we think and how we design our life around those decisions. Sometimes incredibly costly. How many lives were lost over that conflict of different beliefs? A good friend of mine was telling me once how he had achieved a certain degree of success in the world. And so he had a really fancy car, one of those, race cars disguised as a German sedan. And he had just bought his McMansion. And the first time he pulled up into his new house, in his new car, he thought to himself, now maybe my father's going to think I'm successful. And then he realized, my dad's been dead for 10 years. That thought that belief had been dramatically running him his whole life. So we're run by our thoughts. We're run by our beliefs. We start wars. We take a whole strategic tact through life, through oftentimes thoughts and beliefs that aren't fully examined. And maybe you're aware of this in your life. The motivations in your life. What thoughts, what beliefs are they born out of? One of the powerful questions, I mentioned this last week, is to sincerely reflect on the question, what do I really, really want? And when you stay with that question, oftentimes you move through levels and levels and levels. So I'd like to talk about inquiry. What is inquiry as a spiritual practice? Well, basically, inquiry is asking. But it's asking in a particular way. It's asking and then deeply listening to the internal response. To really pay attention to what the question generates inside of you. And as kids, we ask questions all the time. Why is the sky blue? Why do people die? Where do they go? And at some point, oftentimes, we kind of stop asking questions. The questions are too complex. We can't handle them. We kind of go numb. And we opt to not ask the big questions. As Jack Nicholson said in the movie, you want the truth? You can't handle the truth. And this practice is all about what's true. What is actually true? Inevitably, any practice of present moment attention brings us to these deep questions. The big questions can be terrifying. So what are you? When your body falls away, are you gone? And what happens when you die? And the other big question, are the Nats ever going to make it to the World Series? So there's a way of practicing that we kind of move from the declarative to the interrogative. We move from statements to questions. And they can be quite useful. They can help you make good decisions. They can take you more intimately into your own life. So as you may know, I have a product that came out a couple months ago called Body-Centered Inquiry. It's a 6.5-hour training that I did with Sounds True. And it's very much about using questions, but also using your body as sort of a tuning fork, using your body as a way of resonating with those questions and what you find true for yourself. And this practice of meditation is based on two fundamental questions, which I kind of offered during that meditation. The first one is, what's happening right now? So just a little Zen pop quiz, if you can close your eyes. When you ask yourself that question, what is happening right now? What happens inside? When you ask the question, can I be with this? What happens inside? And I'm going to ask you a third question, and just sort of notice your internal response. Is there a sense of how this moment, right now, is there a sense of how it wants you to be with it And when you're ready, you can let your eyes open, or you can remain with them closed. When I ask myself that question, what's happening right now? There's something in my consciousness that shifts to a quality of self-evaluation, of self-observation. And in there's sort of a reflection of, okay, well, what's happening in the body? How am I feeling? What's my energy level? What are the senses? There's also sort of a scan of the mind. So is my mind agitated? Is it rested? What are the particular thoughts? There's also sort of an immediate scan of the emotions. Is there a predominant emotion right now? There might be sort of a scan of consciousness. What's the quality of awareness, the quality of presence right now? This can be such a powerful question, just to pause and just to ask yourself, what's happening right now? You can't not have a response to that question. And that question is the seed that leads to wisdom. Wisdom being the recognition of what's true. And it might be, what's happening right now? Oh, I'm angry. Oh, wait a minute. No, actually, I'm disappointed. That recognition of what's true. When I ask myself the question, can I be with this? Or can I let this be? Can I let this go? That has a different quality of an internal response. And for me, it will sometimes invoke a quality of spaciousness, some quality of opening, some quality of allowing. And that question is the seed of compassion, of your capacity to be with, to allow, to hold your experience, whatever it is. So these two questions are really seen as the two eyes that we look through wisdom, through compassion, are the two wings that make the bird fly. The third question, which I find very powerful from time to time, is, how does this moment want me to be with it? And that question can invoke a very deep sense of intimacy. When you ask internally, right now, how does this moment want me to be with it? When I work with people with that question, it's stunning at different times the way people respond. Oftentimes people will respond, it just wants me to see it. It just wants to be acknowledged. Or there might be a call to relax, or a quality of softening, perhaps. Sometimes different responses. So another little Zen pop quiz, if you will. If you can close your eyes. If you would bring into mind something that you have on your agenda tomorrow that might have a little bit of stress related to it. It doesn't have to be a big thing, but something that might create just a little bit of tension. And when you think about it, what does it feel like on the inside? How does your body hold that thought? Can you locate that? Can you say hello to it, just to let it know you see it? And is there a sense of how that feeling inside? Is there a sense of how it wants you to be with it right now? And regarding this thing that you have tomorrow on your agenda, what advice do you have to give yourself on how to be with it? What comes to mind? And when you're ready, you can open the eyes. these questions can be very helpful, particularly when we begin to recognize that our thoughts and our emotions live on the inside, to really investigate what it feels like on the inside, to sense if we can be with it, to sense, ask ourselves, ask that feeling, how do you want me to be with you right now? It can be a very intimate invocation. And to ask yourself from time to time, so what advice do I have for myself? Sometimes, not all the time, that can invoke some wisdom quality, some recognition. So questions can also be a very powerful way of reframing your situation when you feel stuck. A number of years ago, I moved from being a teacher in a large nonprofit to being the president of the whole organization. I've talked about this before. And as sort of head of this, it was like a $19 million nonprofit and 350 employees and, a lot of stress. I tried really, really hard. I wasn't really trained to be an executive. I was still kind of stunned, why me, when I was in that role. I kind of found that I had too much empathy to make hard decisions. I had to fire people, I got better at it. But it was a really hard thing for me to do. I was really struggling in this position. And I had a sense that I could do it, but at a tremendous cost to my health and to my nervous system. And I was talking with a very wise friend of mine, and I was kind of complaining, about how hard it was, and I just didn't think I could keep doing it without just really, really burning out. And he asked me, he said, so what's good about this situation? And I looked at him, I thought, there's nothing good about this. But he said, what's good about this? And he just waited. And finally I said, I'm really getting that I miss teaching. I'm really getting that I want to be the guy coming to teach and not the guy having to fire people and worried about the strategic plan and the next board meeting. And that helped me to really create a shift. In the midst of my misery in that position, to ask myself, okay, what's good about this? Pretty powerful. It's not about premature transcendence, but it can be about shifting your perspective from being a victim to seeing the good in what might be there. So I started kind of applying that. At one point, one of our manager of our reservations department, came in for a meeting just completely stressed out, and said, we don't have enough people in reservations. We're overwhelmed with the calls coming in, and HR is not giving us the people we need to make this thing happen. And it just went on and on and on. And I just said, okay, so tell me what's good about this. A glazed look. But I had just gone through it. So I just waited. And then this person said, well, our business is doing really, really well. We can't keep up with the demand. And our staff really care. They really want to do a good job. And that created a very powerful shift and changed the conversation in a powerful way. And that's how inquiry works, whether it be deciding what car to buy next or really inquiring into who and what you are. You ask a question, and then you wait, and you sit in the response to it. So let's try this one on, if you like. Just another quick 2-minute Zen pop quiz. If you like, you can close your eyes. By the way, there's no guarantee this will be helpful. I just want to let you know that in advance. And bring into mind something something maybe you're complaining about. Something you might have kind of just a tightness around it. And see if you can make it really specific. Maybe it's something at work or a relationship or some anxiety you have. Just take a moment to go through the files. And take a moment to sense, how does your body hold this situation? What does it feel like when it's sort of chronically not good? And can you say hello to that? And in giving yourself plenty of time, let yourself just sort of respond to this question. What's great about this situation? Or what could be great about it? Just take the next minute to reflect. And then when you're ready, you can let your eyes open. I'm just curious, was anything come to mind? If you can raise your hand, was that at all helpful? Okay, good. Again, you're asking a question and you're sitting in with a response. The first response might be nothing. But if you stay with the inquiry, it points you in a particular direction and you stay in the question. That's kind of how it works. Another very powerful way of reframing a problematic situation is through the work of Byron Katie. I've talked about her work before. And she talks about the 4 questions you ask yourself. Again, when you find yourself caught, it takes some time, but drill down and get the real core belief. That's the important thing. And just to sort of give you a little example, as someone was sharing with me, and they said, no one ever listens to me. And so I asked this person the first question is, well, is that true? Is it true that no one ever listens to you? The first response, yeah, no one listens to me. And you kind of have to nail yourself to the wall on this one. I said, is it absolutely true, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that no one listens to you? It's like, well, absolutely? I don't know that absolutely. So you get a little crack in the wall. And then you ask, what's it like when you think that thought? What's it like when you believe that no one listens to you? And this person went on to describe just how painful it was and how closed down they felt, how small they felt, how much they wanted to be seen and how embarrassed they were about wanting to be seen, and the whole internal mechanism around not being seen and not being heard, and the whole history of that, really describing what that's like. And that's a very helpful piece to really inquire into. What's it like when you believe a thought or a belief like that? The 4th inquiry is the cutting through inquiry. And this question is, who are you without that thought? And that is a very, very powerful process. When you have really named a belief and really gotten in touch with how that belief lives in your nervous system, how you've aligned your life around that belief, and then you ask who you are without it. Sometimes people have almost fallen out of their chairs. I have certainly for myself had a very powerful, just a rush of really sensing who I am without that belief. It can be extraordinary. And again, it's a precise question, and then just being in what arises out of that question. questions can be really, really helpful. The questions you ask yourself. What's the most important thing for me to accomplish in this next meeting? Very pragmatic way to focus your attention. How can I make my evening at work when I get home really enjoyable and restorative? Again, you ask a question. Energy moves in that direction. And what would be the most nourishing dinner this evening? Simple question, but a clear question. It inevitably will bring some internal response. How can I make this weekend really fun? I think I shared with you the story of when I was listening to Tony Robbins, and in his great Tony Robbins way. This was really early in the morning, and he said, every day you got to wake up and ask yourself, how can I make today a great day? And I turned the CD player off. It was a little much earlier in the morning. You know, it's just a little over the top. But then when I was at work, you know, at lunch, instead of like eating and doing email and voicemail all at the same time, I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go for a walk. And I went for a walk out. It was a great walk out in the woods. I came back, I was energized. On the way home, I thought, you know, I'm going to go home a different way. And I went over the mountain and on my motorcycle. It was this great adventure. And then later on, when I was doing my evening intention, I thought, you know, I had a really great day. So as obnoxious as that question can be, how can you make today a great day? Again, you can't not respond if you stay in that question. So questions can reframe a problematic situation if you have the means to ask a different kind of question. I just have to share this. Just one more way that you can use questions to get out of situations. There were two friends who were walking their dogs, and they were in a park. One guy had a Doberman, the other guy had a Chihuahua, and they had a great morning, a Sunday morning. And the guy with the Doberman said, you know, let's go across the street and get a coffee. That'd be really fun. And his friend said, well, they don't allow dogs. His friend, just do what I do. So he put on his sunglasses. He crossed the street, and the maitre d' said, can I help you? He said, I'd like a table. He said, sir, we don't allow dogs. He said, this is a seeing eye dog. The guy said, well, it's a Doberman. He said, well, it's a special program, and we're trying to find out how Dobermans do as seeing eye dogs. And the maitre d' rolled his eyes. He said, go ahead, you know. So his friend across the street sees this. He goes, oh, no. But he puts on his sunglasses. And he goes up to the maitre d' and he says, I'd like a table. And the guy says, sorry, sir, we don't allow dogs. He said, this is a seeing eye dog. And the maitre d' says, sir, a Chihuahua? And the guy says, what? You mean they gave me a Chihuahua? So the right questions can get you out of anything. You want to keep that in mind. I do want to talk about inquiry as a path of liberation. And part of the work of Byron Katie, you know, who are you without a belief, without a negative belief? Who are you without that belief? It's a cutting through practice. And I highly encourage you to check that out because it's transformational work. But inquiry is a very powerful, there are ancient traditions that have used inquiry as a way of directing the mind to cut through the mind. And there's a great story I've always loved. Different traditions have different ways they use inquiry. In Japan, there's the koan, which are the questions that you contemplate. In Korea, they have more of like a forceful approach, creating what they call kensho, like the stopping of the mind. And there's this story of a Dharma debate between a Korean master and a Tibetan master. Now, the Koreans have this way, like they'll use questions like, like, who is dragging your corpse around? Like real direct stuff. Or what is this? Tell me what this is. And then you have to, explain. So they both walked in wearing their different colored robes, and they had their translators, and the Korean master was going to start first. And there was some fruit on the bowl. And he leaned forward and he took an orange and he lifted it up and he said fiercely, "What is this?" And the Tibetan guy looked at him and he talked with his translator, and they talked a little bit more. And they talked a little bit more, and the Korean master said, "What is this?" Total intensity. And then the Tibetan translator says, Rinpoche says, "What is his problem? Don't they have oranges where he comes from?" I had mentioned Ramana Maharshi, who started or was part of a big path of self-inquiry, where he said that 2 questions, if you sincerely live into these questions, will reveal your true nature. They will strip away everything you are not. And the first question is, who am I, or what am I? And the second question is, what do I really, really want? Inevitably, when you ask a question such as, what am I, or who am I, you will get a linear response. The practice is to direct the question and just be with what that experience can create. As a little background, I've mentioned this before, but I've done a number of intensives. They're actually called enlightenment intensives. It's 3 days, 18 hours a day, 1 question. You sit in dyads, so you're sitting across from another person, and the other person will say, "Please tell me who you are." And then you go into the question, and then you speak for 5 minutes. And then the bell rings, and then you'll say to your partner, "Please tell me who you are." And they speak for 5 minutes. So you do 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, break, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, break, 18 hours a day. It's the most brutal thing I've done in my life, and I've done a lot of crazy stuff. But inevitably, and I know I've shared this before, I became really bored with myself, And that didn't even come close to how violently bored I was with everyone else, But after a while, you run out of stories, And it actually kind of leads you to an experience. When you contemplate a question such as this, the mind naturally wants to come up with an answer. Who am I? Well, I'm a white Caucasian male with blue eyes. I've got a master's degree, the whole thing. But the practice is to simply be in the question. So let's try this on. Now, there are a number of questions that can be used in this particular technique of who are you. I find the question, what am I, to be, in a sense, more powerful. Who are you implies there's some personality. Well, what are you is a little more, to me, it's a little more rigorous or scientific or something. So if you like, close your eyes. And we'll take a few moments just to soften and relax. Can you smooth out the forehead? Could you relax your tongue in a way that it fills your lower jaw? Can you soften your hands and palms and thumbs and fingers? Is it possible to relax your belly, to feel the soles of your feet? And in your own way, just contemplate this question. What am I? And you might again refresh the inquiry and just sense a sincere desire to know beyond the mind. What am I? And as you're ready, you can deepen the breath. And in your own way, letting your eyes open if you like. You may have experienced, if just for a nanosecond, your mind stopping. The question cannot be answered by the mind. And that is the power and the potency of inquiry such as this, of directing the mind toward an experience, something that can only be felt. Obviously, this is a challenging practice because it's designed to drive the mind kind of nuts. It's designed to take you beyond the mind. So inquiry, again, can be a very powerful way to make decisions, to create directions. What are the 3 most important things for you to accomplish tomorrow? That's a great question. If you reflect on that question, you will get a sense of the 3 most important things for you to accomplish tomorrow. And that will give you an intentionality and a focus that may be very, very helpful. If you find yourself caught or stuck, what's great about this? What can I learn about this? You can reframe a problematic situation through a question or two. In any given moment during the day, you can pause and take a breath and ask yourself, what's actually happening right now? What am I actually feeling? Very profound way to recognize what's actually here. You can ask yourself, can I be with this? How does this moment want me to be with it? What do I need right now? Very powerful question that can invoke a sense of not only self-observation, but self-care, a sense of self-intimacy. And directing the mind beyond the mind. What am I really? Can be a very powerful way of stopping the mind. What do I really, really, really want out of this life? If you live into that question, there will be a filtering. There will be clarity that will emerge through both a sense of rigor and also a quality of attentiveness. And in all of this, I think the most important thing, whatever the practice is, whether it be simply present moment awareness in the body, cultivating non-judging awareness, moving into spiritual inquiry, the most important quality to nurture is sincerity. The sincere desire to be present, the sincere desire to be awake, the sincere desire to know. Why don't we close with a few minutes of silence? As you reflect on the most important questions you have in your life, you can reflect on these words from Rilke. Be patient toward all that is unsolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves. Like locked rooms and like books that are now written in a foreign tongue. Do not seek the answers which cannot be given to you because you would not be able to live them. The point is, live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps then you will gradually, without noticing it, live along some distant day in the answer. And when you're ready, you can deepen the breath. And let your eyes open when you're ready.